So let's talk about this project as a whole. I have plans for 5 additional books after this first one. The goal with each of these additional books is that they introduce new mechanics themed around a central idea, and they require the core rulebook to work, but they do not require each other. However, the mechanics in them can work alongside these other books if you choose to use them together. So I'm going to walk through all 6 books here, give you an idea of the overview of each one, and that'll be the focus of this video. So the first book, of course, is the core rulebook. It establishes the core rules for creating characters and playing the game. Very basic. The second book will be based on ships. So they could be ships in the seas, ships in the air, or ships in the stars. It's going to introduce rules for creating and upgrading ships, as well as manning the different capacities of those ships. It will also introduce rules for ship-based ability scores, adventuring, and combat. So it draws a strong parallel to the core rulebook, just dedicated wholly to ships. Now, these next 4 books, which I have labeled books 3 through 6, are not in any set order. While the first 2 books, that order will be firm, these 4 could come in any order presumably depending on what you guys would prefer to see first. So I'm going to call them 3 through 6, but really that's not the necessary order. So book 3 is going to introduce ways to engage with cities, including factions, and greater emphasis on downtime. It's also going to introduce rules for enhanced items, which are magic items and more. Expanded rules for tools and crafting, and generally just a huge focus on items in general, introducing a lot of new types of items, better items, enhanced items, which are those magic items that you're used to, and then just really just more and more and more items. So very excited for this one. It's a very fun book, and presumably will probably come third, but again, might be up to you guys. Book 4 is going to emphasize establishing, owning, and upgrading strongholds, as well as focusing on the roles to maintain those strongholds. It's going to implement mechanics for mass combat, more advanced rules for vehicles and mounted combat, as well as recruiting NPCs to man your strongholds. All the mass combat rules are designed to be very similar to the space combat. So if you've played SW5E and played those space combat rules, it's going to be designed to be very similar to that. So it's approachable for those that have played SW5E or even just played 5E. But either way, very simplified rules that are easy to implement at your table. The 5th book is going to focus on monsters. It's going to introduce mechanics for encounter generation beyond those that are traditionally used in 5e, ways to modify those encounters using modular monster roles and enhancements. It's going to focus on monstrous character options that are in addition to rather than instead of. So something like lycanthropy or vampirism, those are things that could happen in addition to you being a champion or an archon or whatever, rather than instead of. So these will be done through feats. The final book 6 is going to emphasize character options, so it will have a lot of character options, as well as GM tools, teaching you how to create your own mechanics using a rock, paper, scissors system, which I'm particularly fond of. It's going to introduce my companion system, which allows characters to have a second, less powerful character. This will be good to represent those characters that want to play, say, such as a Beastmaster, or perhaps have a Squire. So 6 total books in all, again, that work as a cohesive unit or independently beyond. You have to have the first book for the other ones to make sense. So yeah, very excited about this. Hope you guys like this project and consider backing.